Hello, this is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose Dylan, Google Podcast, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose Dylan. Alright, I got a good but relatively quick podcast for you today. I'm going to talk some college football, talk about Colorado a bit, as well as Ja'Marr Chase's current holdout. And I will give some of my Week 1 predictions for the NFL. Alright, this thing will pause, we'll get into it. Alright. So yeah, I'm going to try to make this quick, because as we speak, it is currently 9:30 as I'm filming this, at night. So as crazy as it might sound for someone my age, I am going to try to get to bed pretty soon. But, alright. We're going to open up talking about the Cowboys. I did kind of want to dive deeper into what Dak said about Jerry Jones yesterday. Not only that he doesn't pay attention to what he says to the media, although I do believe that speaks volumes to Jerry Jones, the owner, because I said a few days ago, I think Jerry Jones has done a decent job as a GM. He gets contracts done. He does develop players pretty well. Definitely drafts well. I mean, his biggest problem is he doesn't spend money in free agency, but I think that's more of a owner thing than it is a GM. But that's the weird thing about having your owner be your GM, right? But yeah, one thing Dak said was if his contract isn't done, he said, I think it says a lot if it is or isn't. And as I've said, Dak is going to have a big market if he hits free agency next year. He's not going to hold out this year. He doesn't seem to want to, at least. But that's kind of where he gets the leverage over Dallas here. If he can test free agency and leave, and based on what he said in recent interviews, he doesn't mind leaving Dallas. So now they're kind of in a situation where they need Dak more than he needs them, right? You can say they're paying him $50 million, but another team might be willing to do that. You know what I'm saying? So, in this situation, there's going to be... He will have a market next year. There's plenty of teams that can use a Dak Prescott right now. He is, as I've said, he's a top 12, top 10 quarterback in the league. The Steelers, depending on how things work out this year, they could be looking at a quarterback. Giants might look for him. Who the hell knows? The Patriots, they drafted Drake May, but you never know with them. They've been pretty shaky with their quarterbacks the last few years. But yeah, the Raiders could be looking at him. He'll have teams... he'll pique a lot of teams' interest. Even the Seahawks is an interesting fit. They have Geno Smith right now, who's... he's pretty good, but... Dak Prescott's better. That's the other thing. A team may seem set at quarterback, but when a quarterback like Dak hits the market, you got to consider it. Right? Geno Smith... I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, but Dak's definitely better. I'd rather have Dak than have Baker Mayfield. I'd rather have Dak than who the hell's the Titans guy? Malik Willis? Will Levis? Mason Rudolph? Yeah, I look at Dak in that situation. No doubt. So if Dak hits free agency, he's not losing anything. he'll get signed immediately. Or at least he'll get offers immediately. And he'll decide where to sign eventually. But Dallas, they lose Dak. They're either severely downgrading at quarterback or they're just going to have to completely rebuild, right? Because they get rid of Dak, they're not getting anyone better than him. Because all those guys, as I've said, are on... All the guys that are better than Dak are locked into a certain team right now. I think, I would say right now Jared Goff, I would take Jared Goff over Dak. That might sound a little crazy, but anyway, he's with the Lions. CJ Stroud, he's staying with the Texans. Stafford's with the Rams so far. And then you got the undisputed top 5 quarterbacks, Herbert, Mahomes, Lamar, Burrow, and Allen. They're not going anywhere, right? So they get rid of Dak Prescott, they're kind of in deep shit. So, right now Dak has all the leverage in the world, and as I've said, they're going to offer him crazy money, and that's my guess right now. They're eventually, I said this, I think 2 days ago, I want to say, on the Discarded podcast from Wednesday, they're either going to overpay for him now or after the season. All right, so now we're going to shift our focus to college football. Tyreek Hill took it to Twitter to compliment Travis Hunter, saying he is one of one, and I couldn't have put it any better myself, considering what he did yesterday in Colorado's game. Him and Shedeur, I think I'm pronouncing that right, Shedeur Sanders, really put on a show. I mean, Colorado, let's face it, they're not going to do anything impressive this year, but those two guys are going to be substantial, 100%. Let's just look at this stat line. Shedeur Sanders, 26-30 for 34, 445 yards, 4 touchdowns. Did throw a pick, but that's no big deal. But even more impressive was Travis Hunter, who scored 3 of the team's 4 touchdowns. He really is, as a defensive player and offensive player, he's kind of the Shohei Ohtani of college football. That's what I'm hearing a lot of people say, at least. And I completely agree with his ability to pretty much play every snap and play both positions at a high level. It's rare. There's no one in baseball like Shohei Ohtani, and there's no one in college football like Travis Hunter. And one of the conversations I have also been hearing is, can he win the Heisman if Colorado has a losing record, which is very likely. Colorado, I don't see them winning more than 5 games this year. And in some ways the Heisman has become kind of like the MVP in football, or the NFL, sorry. Where it's kind of the best player on the best team, right? It makes a lot less sense it doesn't make sense for either awards, because really, the Heisman Trophy is given to the best player in college football. It doesn't matter what the team's record is, because it's an individual player in a team sport. So whatever the team did is irrelevant. It matters what the individual player did. And in all honesty, like I said, the MVP should be based on how valuable that person is to their team, because that's what the award says. And yeah, some years they do get it right. But like this past year, they gave it to Lamar Jackson, and yeah, he was maybe the best quarterback. I think that's honestly even dumber than giving it to the best player on the best team. They just gave it to the best quarterback because the Ravens weren't the best team, and Lamar wasn't the most valuable player. Most valuable player last year was Christian McCaffrey. But instead he won Offensive Player of the Year, and Lamar took MVP. But, even in the middle of the season, people were arguing like Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, instead of CMC, who was, in my opinion, more valuable to the Niners than, well, definitely more valuable to the Niners than Purdy is, and more valuable to the Niners than Dak is to the Cowboys. So I do think the Heisman has it's been better at choosing the best player as opposed to the best player in all of college football as opposed to the best player on the best team in college football. But, in my opinion, if Travis Hunter keeps up, if the performance he had yesterday becomes his normal, there's no reason he shouldn't win Heisman, whether Colorado does well or not. And as I said, I'm betting on the fact that they won't. So, and it is actually odd because the Angels had Trout and Ohtani, but were never a great team. And right now, Colorado has Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, two of the best players. And they're likely not going to have a great season. I mean, obviously they could prove me wrong, but I don't see them. Definitely don't see them doing anything crazy. Considering the rest of the roster, because you can't. You're Shiloh Sanders, their safety. Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, those three players, they can't carry you to a Super Bowl when the rest of your team sucks, right? It's not gonna be substantial in the long run. They got to win yesterday over North Dakota State, who they're formidable, but they're far from the best of the best that they'll have to play against. But yeah, so with that, we're going to shift to the NFL. Ja'Marr Chase missed practice again. And honestly, I was very sure at the beginning of this offseason that the Super Bowl was going to be the Niners and Bengals. And every day I become less certain of that. With Chase seemingly holding out, Burrow's potential injury risk, Trent Williams holding out, the Brandon Ayuk situation, and CMC doesn't seem to be 100% either. So that pick is kind of, I don't know. Maybe I have to shift to the, Lions and some other team. Honestly, I'll be honest. If the Packers can't make the Super Bowl, I'm rooting for the Lions to make it in the NFC side. I just figured the Niners were a better team for this year. But I don't know. I mean, even the Eagles, my biggest worry is them losing Jason Kelce. I think they have talent, And I do think Kellen Moore is going to be a major upgrade from Nick Sirianni calling plays. But like I said, I always thought the Niners should focus on Trent Williams before Ayuk, because when you have a great O-lineman, that's major for an NFL team. So losing Jason Kelce is going to be a big deal for the Eagles. And I have no idea. I have no idea how that's going to impact their offense. If it's going to be... I don't know if they're going to have the slide they had last year all year this time, or if they're going to be resurgent and be back to that NFC Championship, possibly contending for a Super Bowl against the Lions and Niners. But alright. With that, I'm going to give you some of my Week 1, just some. I'm not going to go over every game. Just some of the bigger ones. So Ravens, Chiefs, the opener. I am going to say the Chiefs start off the year 0-1. I don't want to say it's an upset, but the line right now is 3, so that's obviously not a big favorite, but I am going with the Ravens there in kind of semi-low scoring fashion, maybe a 20-17 kind of deal. It's going to be a bit of a slow start to the season. That's my prediction right now. The Eagles-Packers. In Brazil, I'm going to say, call me biased, but I'm going with the Packers. This one I think will be a shootout. I don't really have a reason or a stat. It's just a gut feeling. I feel like the Eagles-Packers are going to be like 30-27 barn burner in the Packers' favor. Yeah, like I said, this game I think will be a good, especially because if the Eagles opened up with a easy schedule and their offense looks good without Kelce, I would say that's invalid, right? Because we're not seeing them against a real tough team. But the Packers, they're very much a playoff team. They're I think a top 5 team in the NFC, I would argue. So with them opening up against Packers, we're really getting to see what they look like without Kelce. And granted, Packers defense is average, so we know if they struggle, it's not that great. So Steelers and Falcons I actually find kind of interesting. I think the Falcons open up with a win because just the way they're trending, I think the Falcons are trending up for me, the Steelers are trending down. So Falcons take that one. What's another interesting game? Texans-Colts I think is kind of interesting. I'm taking the Texans in that one, though. And there's 2 more games I'm going to go over. First one, Lions-Rams. That's going to be, I think, closer than most people think. But I'm going to take the Lions. I know that's kind of boring, but I do think that the Rams are definitely going to have the Lions pressed all game. I do. I think it's very much going to be a tough matchup. I do think the Rams are superior in coaching and quarterback, which is massive in a matchup that is this evenly matched otherwise. They both have solid receiving cores, both good running backs, both have great O-lines. So I think the fact that the Rams have a better quarterback and a better coach is going to be big. But I ultimately think it's not going to change the fact that the Lions are just, right now, an overall better team. and they're coming off damn near making the Super Bowl, so that's hard to ignore. The last one is the Jets and Niners, and up until the last few days, I was certain the Niners would win this one, especially with it being in San Francisco and all. Definitely major. But with this Trent Williams holdout, it's really making me question things. I still think the Niners are a good team, but without a unit of an offensive lineman like Trent Williams, that's going to change things. And that's hard to ignore. So, I think there is very much a chance that the Jets open up with a win against the Niners. Now, I still think the Niners are a better team, but I think assuming they don't get this Trent Williams thing ironed out, I'm going to go with the Jets. I think they open up with an upset against the Niners. So, just to review, I got the Jets taking a win over the Niners, Lions over Rams, what else? Falcons over Steelers, Packers over Eagles, Ravens over Chiefs. And, alright. That's it for my week 1 predictions as well as the podcast for today. A little over 20 minutes. Yeah, so as I said, next week I think I'll be on Monday, Tuesday, but then I go back to school. And it's possible you don't hear from me until earliest November. Latest, probably like April. So, but like I said, I'll keep you guys. I mean, you know what the deal is. I'll do a podcast whenever I get the time. But yeah, I mean, typically the last 2 years, I want to say, I don't know if I got back. Was it here last? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to waste your time anymore. But yeah, so this is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose Dylan. Spotify, Spreaker, or iHeartRadio. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose Dylan. Have a good day. I will see you guys Monday.